What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fightsville channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I was joining a conversation that was recently put up here by Okami Games on Twitter. Shout out to you, buddy, for your thoughts on this matter. Now, I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because I think it's actually a reality that we never really have spelled out. We may have considered it, but we haven't really spelled it out because it's right there in front of us, and it's one of those it's quite obvious. So Okami Games writes and says, new Jim Ryan Q&A from 2022 discovered as part of the Microsoft leaks. Now, he basically puts these bullet points, so I'm going to just read them to y'all. He hopes to double their first-party revenue by 2026. In my opinion, this is a very, very interesting thing. Some of you may have watched my Spider-Man Should Come to PC video that I put up yesterday. If you haven't seen it, please do, because I think that falls in line with what this person who's running PlayStation right now actually thinks could happen. I think that's probably a possibility. Jim Ryan says it will be naive to assume all of their 10 live service games will be massive successes. No one is that naive, Jim. Maybe somebody else was thinking it would, but maybe you guys, we know you guys are probably hoping that one or two probably hit, but it's not easy to drop a live service game, especially in today's, climate. Also, third-person graphically beautiful narrative-rich games will continue to be the bedrock of PlayStation Studios. Very cool. Expects third-person titles to grow in sales and profitability over the course of the generation. Bring them on PC. It's going to grow. You don't have to do too much work. Many of you may be wondering why I say that, but look at Marvel Spider-Man's overwhelmingly positive reviews, and that should already tell you that this is a no-brainer. And then he expects the growth of third-person titles to be incremental. The live service games will build on that foundation and take us to another level. Now, I said something in this particular, post. I said there's one small problem: competition. And it's not from Xbox. It's from everyone else. Now, you may be thinking in your mind like, okay, it's from everyone else, but what makes you say that? Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to these game developers that are making some really prolific titles right now that, if we really wanted to be objective, there is no doubt that these titles are actually competing against PlayStation's own first-party titles, the ones that Jim Ryan is actually referring to, and not only competing with them, but edging them out in places like sales and also in major awards that give these games recognition. Now, it may sound crazy, but one thing that really has, maybe not stuck with a lot of people is, yes, you have Nintendo, who's also a major competitor. They do some really cool, crazy stuff. Don't get me wrong. Nintendo will pretty much, come out here and they'll drop one game and the game will sell on their console and beat everything else, and then take Game of the Year and even shadow or overshadow a game like, Horizon Zero Dawn. I remember when that happened in 2017, everybody was like, man, it seems like Horizon Zero Dawn just cannot get a break, right? But the reality of the matter is, it's just the way a lot of these games are structured for the most part. Now, seeing that I said this, I went ahead and added a little bit more context, just to be able to bolster my point to see what's going on. I said From Software, Ubisoft, Rockstar, Focus Interactive, Warner Brothers, and more are bringing in gargantuan single-player games, and in some cases, like Hogwarts, known IPs. PlayStation must add a value proposition to its menu to reach Nintendo levels of profitability. Now, one of my audience members says only Ubisoft and Rockstar can compete against Sony's exclusives like The Last of Us or God of War. But I responded and said, ladies and gentlemen, Elden Ring beat Ragnarok for Game of the Year. We didn't even have to look too far back to see that these studios are bringing games that are challenging the PlayStation exclusives, and not only are they challenging, they're being sold on the exact same platform. So when you actually see the way that a third-party exclusive, or I said third-party exclusive, the way a third-party title may be gaining popularity and is sitting in the same store as the first-party PlayStation games, they're really competitors. Sure, PlayStation is literally hosting its competitors. Yes, it's making money from them in one hand, but in the other hand, it's having to compete against them. So not only are these publishers and studios possibly having to deal with that, they are now increasing, in my opinion, or stepping up their games. Sekiro, another From Software title, took Game of the Year in 2019. I mean, even in 2018, where it is heavily contested, as to which game should have won Game of the Year, many of you remember that Red Dead Redemption was on the stage with God of War 2018. So Rockstar had a game there And From Software has come out with two bangers in the last so many years where they've had the distance. And then I think if we think about, Game of the Year for this particular year, we're looking at possibly Larian Studios to get that. So I don't think that PlayStation is as immune as many people may think to the plethora of a lot of the different games that are out there, because these games continue to show up. I mean, they continue to show up in different different ways and different formats. Different developers are getting more and more bold in putting, say, their titles up there and not afraid to push the status quo, or at least challenge themselves from their previous titles and ensure that, they are able to just go ahead and just drop some really cool stuff afterwards. Look at Jedi Survivor. Yes, it had a lot of issues on PC, and in my opinion, even if it didn't have those issues, I think the game would have been a formidable title overall. This is footage for Jedi Fallen Order, by the way. My Jedi Survivor footage is all over the place, and the performance is so bad and has been bad for a long time. So I don't think I can even use that footage if I wanted to for B-roll. But it is what it is, So I think right now, PlayStation needs to kind of assess and see where its strengths are and understand that even though its strengths may be in these places, the competition is huge. And not only is the competition being hosted on their platform, most of those that are going to compete against them are being hosted on other platforms like PC and Xbox as well. So I got some responses. Someone said, I'm really surprised by Horizon Forbidden West numbers. The first game was a major hit and the sequel sold okay, but almost nobody plays the game. It ranks low on PlayStation Store in most downloaded games, and very few people talk about it. It reminds me of Death Stranding. Terrible game in my opinion. I didn't play Death Stranding. And somebody says Zero Dawn was a better experience in my honest opinion. Forbidden West may have refined the process, but it just didn't seem as cool to me. And they said Sony is fine. Proud Nintendo fan as well as Sony. That's one smart problem for you, not from Sony. There's a lot of people telling me this, that, it's not really a big deal. Sony will be fine. It's not even a problem. Sony's problem from supporting their titles on their platform. I don't think they should diversify their portfolio, though, and it appears they agree. Well, this is what people are saying. Jim doesn't care. He doesn't want to share anything with anyone else, even scared of Nintendo. By the way, he literally told Activision to F off right there. I'm not into console war, but I'm not into BS either. Someone says, this is according to Activision Blizzard EVP Corporate Affairs and CCO Lulu Cheng Maservi, explaining that Microsoft offered Sony a 10-year agreement, which is better than any deal Activision Blizzard would give. Microsoft offered Sony, the dominant console leader for well over a decade with 80% market share, a 10-year agreement on far better terms than Sony would ever get from us, said Maservi. We've also offered Sony guaranteed long-term access to Call of Duty, but they keep refusing. Why? Maservi quoted Jim Ryan's words that was said during the behind closed doors hearing with the European Union regulators, the European Commission on February 21st, which explains why Sony hasn't agreed to any deals. I don't want a new Call of Duty deal, Ryan reportedly said. I just want to block your merger. So basically, this is somebody that's pointing back to that particular area and talking about these issues. But the reality is, I think a lot of PlayStation, aficionados or people who invest in the PlayStation ecosystem, I don't think they really think that, PlayStation is susceptible to market forces. They somewhat think that, PlayStation is impervious to, all of the different issues that may go on in the market, in any sense. They just think because they're sitting in this position that there's just no possibility that they may feel some marketing constraints. I don't know. I don't think anybody is immune to, market changes and market forces. I strongly believe that they probably need to look at these particular developers very carefully as to how they're able to bring these games to everybody's doorstep as quickly as possible. Because, to be honest, these publishers and these other developers are not sleeping, and they're not burdened with a lot of the things that, PlayStation has to deal with. They just have to just make games, and they seemingly are punching them out right now with a lot of quality. They seemingly are able to go ahead and bring so many of these, and it doesn't really matter if anybody wants to say anything. They're saying Sony is fine, but here's Sony on stage with some of its best titles, and those titles are getting smacked by third-party studios. And now that we have a game like Elden Ring, it's raised the bar, and a lot of these third-party studios are going to now start pushing things, because if not, you're going to get forgotten. Like Embracer, who went ahead and bought all of this stuff, but doesn't even really know what to do with it. And then at the end of the day, you see, the way things are going for them. They're sweating bullets. They need to basically go ahead and make things happen. If not, they're going to be out of the market. And just because Sony might be a big, huge, in a big, huge position right now, they're not impervious to pretty much taking the back seat. And if they do not make these moves that we're actually over here, that I'm actually over here suggesting, I would hate to see any other company go in and start to dominate without any, restraint, or without anybody kind of checking them. And right now, Microsoft is probably the company that has done everything they can to check Sony. In my opinion, they basically spent money to the tune of billions to go ahead and just keep Sony, a little bit toned down. But let's not be fooled. It's not possible for Sony to remain impervious all the while. But I'll leave this comment section open for anybody who wants to add anything to go ahead and add. I mean, I know maybe I might get the comment saying Sony is going to be fine, but maybe you don't see the market changes I see. But again, we'll see how it turns out, as we continue to, observe all of this. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.